የ2025 ቦስተን ማራቶን ተጀምሯል። ቦስተን ማራቶን ከማራቶኖች ጥንታዊ በጣም ረጅም እድሜ ያለው ውድድር ማራቶን ነው። በ1897 ነው የተጀመረው በፈረንጆች አቆጣጠር እና በዚህ ውድድር ላይ አብዛኛው ከ1980ዎቹ አካባቢ ኢትዮጵያና ኬንያኖች ናቸው በአሸናፊነት የተቆናጠጡት ውድድሩን። በእርግጥ ኬንያኖች 25 ጊዜ አሸንፈዋል በወንዶች ማለት ነው ቦስተን ማራቶንን። ኢትዮጵያኖች በወንዶች 7 ጊዜ ነው ያሸነፉት እና በዚህ ሁኔታ ኬንያኖች በጣም ጠንካሮች ናቸው። ይሄን በማሸነፍ የቦስተን ኮርስ በጣም ከባድ ነው እና ለኢትዮጵያን አትሌቶች ይከብዳቸዋል። ለዚህ ብለው መዘጋጀት ትሬኒንግ ማድረግ አለባቸው። አብዛኞቹ ኬንያኖች ውድድሩን የሚሰሩት ወይም ልምምዳቸውን የሚያደርጉት ለቦስተን ማራቶን ስፔሲፊካሊ በሆነ መልኩ ነው የሚዘጋጁት ከውድድሩ ወይም ደግሞ ከኮርሱ ከባድነት አንፃር እና ኮርሱ በጣም የመጀመሪያዎቹን ግማሽ ማራቶን 21 ኪሎ ሜትር ላይ ቁልቁለት ነገር ነው። ከዛ ደግሞ በጣም ኤሌቬትድ ከፍ ይላል ማለት ነው። ከፍተ አቀበት አለው ማለት ነው እና በጣም ከባድ ነው የሚሆነው ወደ መጨረሻዎቹ አካባቢ ማለት ነው። በሴቶቹ ማራቶን ውድድር ኬንያኖች 16 ጊዜ ያሸንፈዋል። ኢትዮጵያኖች 8 ጊዜ ነው ያሸነፉት ቦስተን ማራቶን። በሴቶችም በጣም በእጥፍ በላይ ያሸንፈዋል ማለት ነው። ከሁሉም ግን ለየት የሚያደርገው በተከታታይ 3 ጊዜ በተከታታይ ያሸነፈችው አትሌት ፋጡማ ሮባ ነች። ፋጡማ ሮባ በተከታታይ 3 ጊዜ አሸንፋለች። በ1997 በ1998 እና በ1999 እና ያው 26 ዓመት ሆኖታል። ኦልሞስት ማንም ሰው 3 ጊዜ በተከታታይ ያሸንፍ የለም። ሄሊና በሪ ዛሬ የአሁኑን ውድድር የዛሬውን ውድድር የፋጡማን ታሪክ ለመድገም 3 ጊዜ ለማሸነፍ ትሞክራለች ማለት ነው፣ ትሮጣለች እና በ2023 አሸናፊ ነች፣ በ24 አሸንፋለች፣ በ25ም አሁን እናያታለን ማለት ማሸነፏን የፋጡማን ከፋጡማ ታሪክ ጋር የምትጋራ ከሆነ ማለት ነው። እና በዚህ አጋጣሚ ፋጡማ በጣም ጠንካራ ጀግና ሴት ነች ማለት ቦስተን ማራቶን በጣም ከባድ ኮርስ ከባድ ውድድር ነው ኮርሱ። ያንን ለ3 ጊዜ በተከታታይ ማሸነፏ ማንም ሰው ለ26 ዓመት እየደፈረው የለም ማለት ነው። የሴቶቹም ውድድር ተጀምሯል። በዚህ ውስጥ ሄሌና በሪ ያለች ኬንያዊቷ፣ ኢትዮጵያን አትሌቶችም አሉ። እናየዋለን። ቦስተን ማራቶንን ካሸነፉት ኢትዮጵያን አትሌቶች በወንዶች እስከዛሬ ስማቸው ላይክ በ1989 አበበ መኮንን 2 ሰዓት ከ09 በመሮጥ አሸንፏል። በ2005 ኃይሉ ንጉሴ በ2 ሰዓት ከ11 ደቂቃ በመሮጥ እሱም አሸንፏል። በ2009 ድሪባ መርጊያ 2 ሰዓት ከ08 በመሮጥ አሸንፏል። 2013 ሌሊሳ ዴሲሳ 2 ከ10 በመሮጥ አሸንፏል። 2015 ላይ ሌሊሳ ዴሲሳ በድጋሚ 2 ሰዓት በ09 በመሮጥ አሸንፏል። 2016 ላይ ለሚ ብርሃኑ 2 ከ12 በመሮጥ አሸንፏል። 2024 ሲሳይ ለማ 2 ሰዓት ከ06 በመሮጥ አሸንፏል። በዚህ ውድድር ላይም ሲሳይ ለማ አለ፣ ተሳታፊ ነው። ዘንድሮም ያሸንፍ እናየዋለን። በርግጥ ሲሳይ ለማ ፓሪስ ኦሎምፒክ ላይ ተመርጦ ነበረ እንደምናስታውሰው፣ ግን ሳይሱ የሱን ቦታ ለተምራቱላ አሳልፎ ሰጥቷል፣ ያው በህመም በኢንጁሪ ምክንያት እና እዚህ ላይ ተሳትፏል፣ እየተሳተፈ ነው እና ከህመሙ ምን ያህል ሙሉ ለሙሉ አገግሞ ይሁን አላቅም፣ እናየዋለን። አንዳንድ ጊዜም ባያገግምም ሊሮጥ ይችላል ይሄን ውድድር እንደሚመስለኝ ማለት ነው፣ ባያገግም። ምክንያቱም የአምናው የ2024 አሸናፊ ነው፣ ይጋብዙታል፣ በቀጥታ ይገባል ማለት ነው እና እዚህ ላይ ሲገባ ሲሳተፍ ባይጨርስ እንኳን ባያሸንፍ እንኳን ውድድሩን ባይጨርስ እንኳን ጀምሮ አፒራንስ መኒ ያለው አፒራንስ ክፍያ ስላለው ይገባል ብዬ መግባትም አለበት ብዬ ነው የማስበው ማለት ነው። በመሙ ቢሻለውም ባይሻለውም ማለት ነው ስቲል፣ ምክንያቱም አፒራንስ መኒ እስካገኘ ድረስ ይገባል። ያው ስማርት ትሆናለህ ማለት ነው ባያሸንፍም እና አሁን ውድድሩ ሙሉ ለሙሉ የጨርሰው አይጨርሰው አላውቅም፣ ግን ያንን ታሳቢ አድርጎ የመጣ ይመስለኛል። እናየዋለን። በሴቶቹ የኢትዮጵያን አትሌቶች ቦስተን ማራቶንን ካሸነፉ ውስጥ 1997 ላይ ፋጡማ ሮባ 2 ሰዓት ከ26 በመሮጥ አሸንፋለች። በድጋሚ 1998 ላይ ፋጡማ ሮባ 2 ሰዓት ከ23 በመሮጥ አሸንፋለች። አሁንም በድጋሚ 1999 ላይ ፋጡማ ሮባ 2 ከ23 በመሮጥ ለ3 ጊዜ በተከታታይ አሸንፋለች ማለት ነው። ከሷ በኋላ 2008 ላይ ነው ድሬ ቱኔ 2 ሰዓት ከ25 በመሮጥ አሸንፋለች። ከዛ ቀጥሎ 2010 ላይ ጠይባ ኢርኮሶ 2 ከ26 በመሮጥ አሸንፋለች። ከዛ 2014 ላይ ብዙነሽ ደባ 2 ከ19 በመሮጥ አሸንፋለች። አይ ቲንክ ኮርስ ሪኮርድ ነው የብዙነሽ፣ ዛሬ ይሰበር አይሰበር አናውቅም፣ እናየዋለን። 2016 ላይ አጸደ ባይሳ 2 ከ29 በመሮጥ አሸንፋለች። ከዛ በመጨረሻ 2019 ላይ ወርቅነሽ ደገፋ 2 ከ23 በመሮጥ አሸንፋለች። ቦስተን ማራቶንን ያሸነፉ ኢትዮጵያ አትሌቶች በሴቶች እነዚህ ናቸው። እንግዲህ በዚህ ውድድር አሸናፊ ለሆነው አትሌት $150,000 ሽልማት አለው ማለት ነው። ማለት ለሴትም ለወንድም ለእያንዳንዳቸው ማለት ነው። በተጨማሪም ኮርስ ሪከርድ ካሻሻሉ $50,000 ተጨማሪ ያገኛሉ ማለት ነው። በአጠቃላይ $200,000 ያገኛል ማለት ነው። ያሸነፈ ሪከርድ ያሻሻለ። እዚህ ውድድር ሌላው ሙክታር ኢድሪስ ዴቢው ለመጀመሪያ ጊዜ ማራቶንን ይሳተፋል። ከ5000 ሜትር ትራክ ወደ ጎዳና ወደ ማራቶን ሽግግር ላይ ነው፣ ትራንዚሽን ላይ ነው ማለት ነው። የመጀመሪያው ውድድር ነው ማራቶን እና ትንሽ ገርሞኛል ማለት በመጀመሪያ ውድድር ላይ ይሄን ማራቶን ቦስተን ማራቶን መምረጡ ትንሽ ከበድ ስለሚል መምረጡ ለሱ በጣም ቻሌንጂንግ ነው ብዬ አስባለሁ። ምክንያቱም ኮርሱ ይከብዳል። የመጀመሪያው የማራቶን ውድድር ጥሩ ውጤት እንደሚያመጣ እንደሚሳካለት ተስፋ አለኝ። ላይክ በሰለሞን ባረጋ ቫለንሺያ ላይ ከወራቶች በፊት ሮጦ በጥሩ ሁኔታ እሱም ከትራክ ውድድር ሽግግር አድርጓል ወደ ማራቶን 2 ሰዓት ከ05 በመሮጥ አሸናፊ በመሆን የማራቶን ጉዞን ጀምሯል እሱም ማለት ነው። እና እድሪስም ከሱ እኩል ወደ ማራቶን በጥሩ ሁኔታ ይሸጋግራል ብዬ እምነት አለኝ። መልካም እድል ይሆንላት። የፊታችን እሁድ ለንደን ማራቶን ይካሄዳል። በጣም እጅግ ከባድ ጠንካራ ምድብ ነው በወንዶችም በሴቶችም። በወንዶች ቀነኒሳ በቀለ እና ኢልዩድ ክፕቾጌ ድጋሚ ተገናኝተዋል። በወንዶች ውድድር ታምራት ቶላ አለ፣ ሚልኬሳ መንገሻ አለ፣ ሴባስቲያን ያለ በጣም ከባድ ውድድር ነው። በወንዶች ከባድ ምድብ ነው። በሴቶችም እጅግ በጣም ከባድ ውድድር ምድብ ነው። ትግስት አሰፋ አለች፣ ሲፈን ሀሰን አለች፣ ሩዝ አለች፣ ኬንያዊቷ ፕሬስ አለች ኬንያዊቷ እና በወንድም በሴትም በጣም ጠንካራ ምድብ ነው ያለው እና በጣም አባጊ ውድድር ነው። ለንደን ማራቶን በጉጉት እንጠብቃለን ለመከታተል።
Athletes that are either in the same training groups or same countries, if there's a missed bottle or something, they'll actually share that bottle and share that fluid. So important to keep an eye on these portions of the race. Not so much for the separation that occurs, but just making sure that everyone got to their bottle, as those things are critical in keeping the fueling the way that they want it to be. They have come into these, and you see the men also grabbing theirs as well. Edris with some deliberateness there as he grabs his bottle, as the men have now a lap through the 15-kilometer mark of the race, coming through in 43:28.
And notice, Paul, how on the right of our screen, he might come into picture. Connor Mance went straight to run the tangent of this course. He is not going to run an extra step. So you see him there all the way on the right side of the screen, running that tangent and making sure he doesn't run a single extra step that he does not have to today.
Official split at 15 kilometers for Lema was 43:28. Ran 42:43 last year, which at the time was a course record. So things fast here in the early going on the men's side. And that is a challenge that the Americans at this point are willing to accept, or at least Connor Mance and Clayton Young are the two Americans in this lead group. And we talked about them being training partners, but they have been linked for a while now. And Connor Mance, success at Brigham Young University, now 28 years of age. Has that experience in Boston, but kind of came out that first Boston experience saying that he was a little disappointed with his effort.
He was disappointed. I talked to him about that. He said he learned so much from that race, including we just saw him take his nutrition, how important nutrition was early on. You know, I thought he was going to tell me the pacing and reading the course, but one of the biggest lessons for him was how important nutrition is at the Boston Marathon. A lot of pressure on Connor Mance to be the next great American marathoner. I think he's already answered that by winning the Olympic trials, placing 6th in New York, placing 8th in the Olympic Games. But for him to arrive, he wants to be on that podium.
So this league group has about 17 seconds on the second group that's trying to chase. As you see back, you can really see now they have put some distance between them and the rest of the field. Now it becomes a survival game. Just stay with this group as long as possible. But again, reminder that they are racing on course record pace right now, which has stood since 2011 when Jeffrey Mutai ran this race in 2 hours, 3 minutes, and 2 seconds. That time no longer seems as incredible, but at the time.
Oh, I was in that race that day, Paul, and our minds were blown by that time. And to think that they're under that pace right now, it's truly, truly incredible. There and race the Boston Marathon.
So our first champion crowned in 2025, but there is more championship racing to come here. The men's and women's professional fields out on the course as they work their way to Boston. So Sisse Lema, the 2024 champion on the men's side, up there with Australian Patrick Tiernan, American Connor Mance, Mukhtar Edris in his marathon debut, and Ramatusa of Ethiopia leads this women's race. Amani Bariso behind her, and the two-time defending champion Helen Obiri. Sharon Lokedi is up in that lead group as well.
Paul, this men's race went out blazing fast, but they have settled down now. You saw sort of the pack was completely strung out. Now they've regrouped a little bit, slowed down a little bit, where the women's race was slow to begin, and then they really started picking it up, and we saw a separation there. So we have two definitive lead packs on both the men's and the women's side.
Wheelchair divisions have reached the finish line on Boylston Street, and now it is the racing here for the men and women. Still plenty of racing here, and two very different races unfolding here on the left and right side of your screen, with the men, again, racing at course record pace with a large contingent here in the lead group. And the women, you see just 5 in picture, maybe a few others within a few strides, but definitely a dwindling number at the front.
Well, they are really cranking in this women's race now. They are just dropping every kilometer, every mile seems to be getting faster and faster. And that's why you've seen that separation of just 5 women now in that lead pack. The paces that they are running are incredibly difficult on a flat marathon, let alone a marathon like Boston with all of the undulation and the changes in tempo. So that's why you see them really breaking away there. The men, we've seen Rory Linkletter be out front for a bit of a while now in the orange top, and Pat Tiernan to his left as well. But really it's been the same men in that lead pack this whole time. They really haven't done enough damage to drop anyone. And I think the men that are in the second and third row are happy to sit there, Paul, and kind of be pulled along here.
Who haven't mentioned much so far is that 5th woman in that lead group, the 33-year-old Kenyan, who was 3rd in Chicago last fall.
Well, Paul, I am interested in Yahula, who's in the lead right now. We know her as a very good runner, the youngest woman to ever win the London Marathon, but we've really only seen her on flat marathons. So seeing what she does here throughout the hills will be very interesting.
Yeah, she won the Dubai half marathon earlier this year. That is also not one of those races known for its hills, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, we know she's fast, but how does she do on these challenges? So far, she's handling it really, really well, but I'm super curious to see what happens over the next 5 miles.
So she's leading in her Boston debut. Meantime, Connor Mance, part of that lead group here with John Korir. Again, he's not with a bib on the front of his jersey. They are all in white. Tiernan, Linkletter, still 6 seconds faster than the course record as they've reached Ron, who 2 years later was that first female wheelchair racer in Boston, and Susanna Scaroni, a fitting champion on this anniversary day, taking the women's wheelchair race. Well, the Scream Tunnel is alive and well in Wellesley. You've had that experience before Kara Goucher, and you've had that experience being among the leaders. How big a help is this at this point of the race?
Oh, they're so excited to see the leaders, and they're so loud. And we saw Sharon Laketti wave a little bit. Like, you just take it in. It's hard not to. It's hard to not pick up your stride a little bit through that section. But then it is followed by this silence. You kind of go into the forest, and so it is quite a contrast while you're out there. You get a rush of adrenaline, and then it all kind of calms down. And we see the women almost regrouping here and repacking after that loud stretch.
As they come into their next aid station, and a little bit of traffic here, you can see the hands and saying, hey, give me room, give me space. And that's the respect of equal competitors at this point of the race. You don't want to block somebody out from missing their water bottle. You wouldn't be mad if they did, but
Yeah.
but I think it's a bit about the sportsmanship here. These women are 44 seconds ahead of course record pace here in what has been remarkable racing so far. Buzenesh Deba of Ethiopia, 2:19:59, the only sub 2 hour and 20-minute performance. There you see the women at 15K.
Yeah, Paul, and I'm wondering now that these women pressed really hard and created some separation, if they might slow down a little bit and gather themselves. They kind of wanted to push, and there's this phrase, separate the pretenders from the contenders. And I wonder if now we'll see a little bit of regrouping here amongst these women.
Yeah, and I take note of that 15-kilometer list that we saw, where we had 14 women in that lead group 5 kilometers ago, and
Right.
that has now dwindled to 5. So you can see that pace has really stayed hot and stayed constant. And you look at the fastest times in the history of this event. First 3 of those times you saw was from the podium in 2014, and then the last fastest race was back in 2002 with Margaret Okeo of Kenya winning that day in 2:20:43. But right now, crowd has gotten loud once again, and bottles are dropping to the wayside here. Everyone getting in their fluids. And as they get into Wellesley Square, those bottles not consistent necessarily in what they have in them from one stop to the other.
Some are more concentrated than others. Sometimes they have more volume. Sometimes they're more concentrated. Sometimes they have caffeine, and sometimes they don't. They're really tailored, and nutrition has come a long way in the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years for these athletes. Really tailored individually to each athlete and what they need at that point in the race. You see Helen Obiri there in the back of that pack, our 2-time reigning champion, really taking the time with her nutrition. She knows how important it is here at Boston to get those fluids and get that nutrition early on in the course. It takes a while for your body to absorb it, so the earlier stages is much more important to take those fluids than later.
So the women have just passed the half marathon point here in 68:46. The split for the course record was 69:28. So this is hot.
They are flying, and when that course record was set, I will say Shalane Flanagan of the United States came after running in 2013 and wanting to deliver an American win, and she ran totally free. She dragged the women out. She ended up being overtaken in the later stages of the race, but she really ran aggressively from the gun. So to see them over a minute, Paul, ahead of that is truly incredible. And to see 5 women almost working together at this point, we don't have someone that's trying to run away with it. We have 5 women who are really thinking about what's going to happen ahead and trying to strategize when they're going to make their move. This is incredible racing, and also considering they got off that starting line very, very conservatively. It really just shows you how fast those last few miles were.
Well, I note of the 5 women in this lead group, Lokedi and Obiri actually with lifetime bests above that 2 hour and 20-minute mark. So you got 3 women known for their super fast races on flat courses. How does the rest of this course play into not only this pace, but who may have an advantage?
I think the women who have run here before have the advantage because they know what's ahead. Now, granted, the last 5 miles is going to come down to speed. It's slightly downhill, straightaways, and lots of fast running. But the challenge of these hills, the Newton Hills, the climbs here, and the ability to know you're going to have a chance to recover, the ability to know what's ahead really is a huge advantage on this course. We'll find out what happens, but my gut says the people who have been here before are going to fare a little bit better.
The group chasing this group of 5, now 49 seconds back. Haile Selassie and Tusa with Cheptu, Ngugi, and Dariba, all part of that group, as well as Thackeray of Great Britain. Pretty much all Kenya, Ethiopia here at the top of the ledger. And then you had Thackeray, and then there was a quartet of Americans, I believe, as part of that top 20. But you had to go down to Annie Frisbee, who's the top American right now, coming through in 66 minutes even. Meantime, at the finish line, what a great finish line. The racing continues here as the men start to approach the hills here, Kara. And we mentioned earlier they were under course record pace, but they have backed off just a little bit. And part of the effect here is we just have a large group here in the lead.
Yeah, I think that they're all really feeling each other out here a little bit. You know, Connor Mance is such a student of the sport. He can tell you, Paul, he could sit in the booth right now and he could tell us everyone who's in the pack with him and what their strengths and weaknesses are. So I think that Mance, you know, we've seen him in the front a lot here, but he's also really thinking about who's here and when he wants to make his move. And perhaps he's trying to conserve a little bit for later. He knows that there's probably going to be a big move made around the 25-kilometer mark, and he wants to make sure he has plenty left in the tank to cover that move.
See Bariso now in the lead for the women. O'Beary bouncing behind her in second position as that group of 5 remains consistently together with Lokedi, Cheptai, Yehuala, Bariso, and O'Beary.
And they kind of keep bopping around and changing leaders here. It does feel like they're working together here a little bit to continue to stretch out their lead. At some point, there will be no more working together. But I think right now they want to just sort of relax a little bit and work their way through the ball.
Well, 2 runaway races in the wheelchair division and no runaway races happening here on our 2 remaining races that will follow into Boston. The men's professional field, still a group there, though. You see Canadian Royer Linkletter beginning to lose a little bit of contact here, and in these sort of undulations of pauses to the climbs and then another climb, just critical to keep yourself within a few strides and hope maybe you can get back into the rhythm of that larger group in front of you.
Well, I want to point out in the purple, Idris, our 2017 and 2019 world champion in the 5,000 meters, is hanging in there at this point in the race. Pretty impressive run by him. And we did see some of the men grabbing water and putting it on their heads. It seems like maybe they are.
Back to our coverage in Boston of the men's and women's professional fields, and 28-year-old John Korir of Kenya, minus that racing bib on the front of his jersey, has now begun to fly in this portion of the race. And Connor Mance trying to cover that move head down, just trying to grind his way back into position to regain contact with him. And Yuhaulau and Amane Bariso are the 2 out here in front, leading the 2-time defending champion Helen O'Beary, with Sharon Lokedi and Irene Cheptai in pursuit.
Well, this is a move out of Korir here, Paul. He won the Chicago Marathon in the fall. He has high confidence coming in here. He knows this course. At the press conference, I spoke to him. I said, how are you feeling? Great. Are you ready to run? Yes. He knew what he wanted to do, and this is as decisive of a move as you can make out on this course, immediately breaking away from the pack.
See those splits and how he's maintained contact with the leaders and now has that advantage. And of course the subplot storyline to John Korir is that he is the younger brother of 2012 Boston champion Wesley Korir, and that linkage to history, part of the narrative that will follow as he makes his way towards Boston. But that is a very talented group that right now looks like it's going to be a patient group. That's Idris just ahead of Connor Mance. See the fourth place finish just off the podium by Korir last year. That's also motivation beyond just the family connection here, as he just felt like he needed to be just a little bit better on the day last year in order to get on the podium, and now leads the Boston Marathon as they near 33 kilometers in. So inside of 10 kilometers to go in the men's race for a Boston title.
Well, we see him looking back here and there just to see what's happening behind him. He is the two-time Los Angeles Marathon champion, which is also a difficult hilly marathon. So he has planned this. This has been on his mind. He has opened up a lead here. I will say at Boston, it's never over till it's over, because there's so much that can happen in those final 10 kilometers. But right now he looks very, very good. And it's funny, I almost pointed him out earlier. He was running kind of in the back of the pack, and he just looked so effortless. It was almost like he was biding his time to go to work. And now we see Connor Mance move to the front. Mance knows he needs to close down that gap if he wants to be Boston Marathon champion. So as you said, Paul, head down and really now driving to close that gap.
Well, as we see this dwindling number in the lead group, we should mention that the defending champion, Sisse Lema of Ethiopia, has fallen well back of the field here. That very hot pace he could not sustain. Some questions about his fitness coming into the race. He ran a very dominant solo performance in winning a year ago, much like we're seeing from John Korir right now, but he was 6 minutes back at 25K, and he has not been picked up yet at 30 kilometers. So you see the list there that has come through at the 20-mile mark with Korir at 1 hour and 35 minutes, and that 3-second delta between him and the rest of the field is actually growing here with every stride.
Yeah, this is a move here. The men in the back aren't sure if they should go with it or not, but Connor Mance has decided he is going to go. He's gone to the front of that chase pack, and he's going to try to recoup some of the ground here that Korir is building here. But Korir is looking very good right now, bouncing right off that pavement, using his arms, effortless right now as he moves away from the rest of the pack.
So you look at the map, and really at the bottom, that very important to note of kind of where the undulations in this course occur and the elevation changes to where the women are versus the men. As the men kind of try to crest and get themselves over those Newton Hills.
I noticed some breakups there, but I think that John Korir really just took that pack by surprise with that move. It was so powerful and so quick, and it was almost like they didn't have time to respond to it, and by the time they realized it, he had put so much distance on. Now he is continuing to look back. That can mean a couple things, that he wants the information of what's happening behind him, or he isn't feeling good. I think it's definitely the first, that he's just gathering information right now and seeing how his move is working. We do see him checking his watch, probably looking at his pace. He knows what he's capable of doing and trying to stay within those reins.
Well, similar race strategy than to what we saw in Chicago, where he made that decisive move and got himself out and away for the second fastest time in the race's history. And here trying to make some history, try to match the result of his brother Wesley from 13 years ago when he won in 2012. Cyprian Kotut is now leading this group that has dwindled to 4, and give credit to both Connor Mance as the top American here, trying to make himself podium worthy on this day racing in Boston, and Mukhtar Edris trying to make a statement by transitioning to the roads successfully in his debut.
Absolutely. Now we take a look at the women. The last time we saw them, Lokedi, who's now in 4th, had dropped back, but she has regrouped herself and gotten back on the back of that pack. But what a run we're seeing here from Yuhala in the front there. We're not used to seeing her, Paul, as we said, on hilly courses. They are absolutely flying 2 minutes ahead of the course record pace. I cannot actually believe what we're watching right now. 4 women just flying out on the Boston course.
Well, and just a reminder for Helen O'Beary, lifetime best of 2:21:38, and that course record that has stood since 2014 is 2:19:59. So you're asking the two-time defending champion to run fast. History and breakthrough moments that have happened, and yet you have a situation with two brothers coming in, you know, another bit of Boston legends born.
Absolutely. I mean, that is an incredible story and something that I don't think anyone could fathom, that 2 siblings would be good enough and dominant enough in their sport to win the Boston Marathon, a marathon that is just so rich and steeped in tradition and in competition. So this is incredible. He's decided to take his bottle. A lot of the athletes won't take it at 40K because they're focused in on the racing, and it's hard to get any real benefit at this point from the bottle. So he's taking it. It's a little climb here that feels very, very tired, you know, very steep on your legs. He keeps looking back. He knows he's in good position here. And he's put himself in a position where he might be able to really, truly enjoy that run down Boylston. His mouth is opening now for the first time. He's obviously working hard, but again, his form is so collected and so smooth.
So closing in on the final stretch of this men's race, the women still in a battle with the 4 running kind of across from each other. No one really wanting to take the race at hand at this point, with Lokedi maybe slightly ahead for just a moment. But O'Beary, who had been kind of behind this group here for most of the last stretch of the race, starting to show and emerge here, and knowing that she's going to have to, if she wants to win a 3rd consecutive title, start to try to take control.
Well, I'll tell you, she is not afraid of the kick, Paul. She was known as a kicker on the track, and I asked her about that. How does the kick on the track translate to the marathon? And she said, once a sprinter, always a sprinter. But it is certainly John Korir here leading this Boston Marathon.
Yeah, lost his bib early in the race. What will change when he potentially returns, hopefully next year, is the bib will just say John.
Exactly, exactly. The gift you get of being a former champion, you always get your first name on your bib.
On to Boylston Street. The finish line is now in sight. And on Hereford, here is the race for the rest of the podium. Mance, Kotut, and Simba.
Mance is digging down so deep, finding everything he can to try to push away on that little bit of uphill. It is such a grind for the 3 men behind, but not for John Korir. Look at how effortless this looks, Paul, in his final strides here. Just so upright and so much flow and relaxation in his body.
Crowd and the noise beginning to envelop the 28-year-old John Korir. 3 across now, that race behind him with Kotut, Simbu, and Mance. And look at this, it's going to come fast and furiously as the finish line is in sight for all these men. Now these other 3 men are going to get pushed over to the right side now and trying to get directed that way as we welcome into the closing stretch to join his older brother Wesley Korir.
Pulled out his bib.
Pulled out his bib as John Korir adds his name to the history, and look who's celebrating there at the finish line. John Korir joins his brother Wesley as a Boston Marathon champion. And here comes Simbu, Kotut, Mance, just not having enough in the tank. as the race for second is going to come down to a lean. And Simbu and Kotu will finish here nearly side by side. What a finish for second, as Korir with the third fastest finish in Boston history.
Here, we'll bring out here. We'll bring out here. John, come on out here for a second.
And Mukhtar Edris, and not a story to be lost on this championship race day.
Incredible performance by him, stepping up from the track, and his track days have been over for a while, Paul, so what a race out of him. Mance, very impressed by his effort today. He left it all out there. He should have no regrets. He did everything he could. He did everything right, and he should celebrate that fourth place finish.
Women are down to 3. Sharon Lokedi saying to Helen Obiri, if you would like to take the lead, you are welcome to, but Obiri not interested, and Yehoalau is the third in that group. No sign of Amane Bariso, so down to 3 women as they race towards a championship on Boylston Street. So Kara, 3 women now left. Who do you like?
I like all of them, Paul. How's that for an answer?
No, you got to pick one.
I am very impressed by Yehoalau, who has really only raced flat marathons before that. She has survived the climbs. She has survived to this point in the race, and she still looks good. We know Obiri is confident in her finish. We know she doesn't fear that. But we also know the Lokedi has had an unbelievable year and is very supremely confident. Now we see a shot of the first American in the field right now, Annie Frisbee, looking great. She trains with Dakota Popane. Her coach told me, though, that her workouts were just as good as Dakota's, and this is an awesome race out of her. She looks so good and relaxed at this late stage. She is actually challenging what would be the American course record out here right now, on pace to run under 2:23. Of course, the American course record is low 2:22.
35-kilometer split for Lokedi was 1 hour, 54 minutes, and 41 seconds. The course record split for this race was 1:39.20. Perez Jepchirchir did that a few years ago. Deba on way and en route to the course record ran 1:39.21 for 30K, 1:56.23 at 35K. So they're well under course record pace here.
Lokedi looks very good to me, very determined. She's had a great year so far. She won the New York City half in dominant fashion after that 4th at the Olympics. She hasn't won in Boston. We know she wants it on her resume. It's interesting talking to her. She won the New York City Marathon in her debut, but she still hasn't seen herself as one of the best marathoners in the world, which is crazy to me. She obviously is. A win here would certainly solidify that to everyone, but hopefully in her mind as well.
We mentioned it earlier in the broadcast that both Lokedi and Obiri are being basically forced to run faster than they've ever run the marathon distance before. Yehoalau has that flat racing pedigree where Lokedi and Obiri have really benefited from race courses like this, and Yehoalau now sensing maybe an opportunity here to start the sprint for home.
Well, her agent did say that if she was still in the mix, they hoped she would make a move around the 24th mile mark, and it seems to be that she is trying to execute that plan. Again, Paul, I'm so impressed that she is still here. This is a new situation for her, a course like this, the challenges of this course, her ability to be there still at this point in the race is very, very impressive to me. To train for Boston is very, very different than training for the London Marathon, and she's doing a great job out there.
Well, even with that new pace, 3 3 women in the race for the Boston Marathon title in 2025. The 2-time defending champion Helen Obiri, Sharon Lokedi, and Yalamzurf Yahula of Ethiopia. 3 across now, and Helen Obiri. Chasing that history is Helen Obiri, but now also chasing Sharon Lokedi, last year's runner-up, is now the leader in the Boston Marathon as they've just passed 39 kilometers, and the fastest of the 3 of these leaders for the women, Yohalala, is now falling off the back of this trio as it's down to a 2-woman race for now.
Well, she really helped this race roll and get them to the pace that they're at right now. I think she will hang on for a very, very strong third finish here. But now we have a battle of these 2 women who have been so close. Remember, Lokedi was second to Obiri last year, not by much, by 8 seconds. So Obiri said she does not fear the sprint. She considers herself a sprinter, but Lokedi is in new shape this year, Paul, and she's been running with more confidence. So we see her now in the lead here, not afraid to take it and see if she can stretch out that kick and really take the sting out of Obiri's leg.
2:19:59. That is the current standard for the fastest time ever run in the women's marathon. The record is the green dot that's pulsating on the screen. The women that are racing on your screen are that pulsating red dot, L for leader. So more than a minute ahead of the course record pace that was set back in 2014. Neither of these 2 women have ever raced a marathon as fast as this would be, which means they've just been sandbagging as marathons.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's always been a lot of question of how fast could these 2 women go, because they typically have, not typically, they have always chosen the more difficult marathons. The Olympic Marathon in Paris, the New York City Marathon, the Boston Marathon. They've really picked these marathons that are more strategic, and there's always been a lot of question of how fast could they go, and I think we're getting a little taste of that today, Paul. Running sub 220 on this course is absolutely phenomenal. I have to tell you, for me, someone who's run here 3 times, it's mind-blowing to see them running this fast on such a challenging course. So this answers a lot of questions of, could these women run fast? Could they run sub 220 on a flat course? Heck, yes, they could. They're going to do it here today in Boston.
Soon to reach 40 kilometers. Lokedi once again being very polite. Helen Obiri, if you'd like to take a lead, you are welcome to do so. And Obiri is absolutely happy, as we've seen her so many times on the track, Kara Goucher, just lurking and waiting to strike.
She really has this unique ability to, no matter how fatigued she is, how much in the well she is, to be able to find this kick, to be able to flip this switch. And she's had it in the marathon as well. So a lot of people right now would be on the ropes and worried about it. Obiri knows she still has that in her pocket. That doesn't mean that Lokedi isn't doing everything she can to take that kick out of Obiri's legs, and that is exactly what she's doing now. Look at the difference in the way they're looking. Lokedi is looking straight up and ahead. Obiri's looking down a little bit here and there. This is going to be an unbelievably close finish, Paul.
And that list will change.
Oh, yes.
In a matter of moments, as they went through 40 kilometers in 2:10:22, the fastest ever 40-kilometer split up until this point was when Deva ran 2:12:39 in her win back in 2014. A remarkable pace of running here for the women as they both choose to go to their fluids one last time.
You know, there is research that says even if you just swish your fluids, it sends a signal to your brain that it is getting those calories. It's too late in the race for them to actually absorb them, but they both went for their bottle. They're both going to try to swish that and just get a little bit of an energy boost from their brains from tasting that liquid. They are in full flight though now, Paul. It's hard to imagine how they could pick it up anymore. They are running so fast. This is truly just phenomenal to watch. They are rewriting the history books today.
Lokedi still holding the bottle. Obiri slammed it down with authority. In the background, you can see the aerial view of Fenway Park, a legendary stadium for Major League Baseball in the United States. That is always a traditional part of the Patriots Day celebration. And with 1 mile to go, O'Beary for the very first time looks like she tried to make a move, and Locati covered it quickly.
She absolutely did, and Locati shut that down. She said, no, I'm ready. 2 Kenyan women who had different approaches leading into this. Locati stayed in the United States, decided to stick it out in Flagstaff through the winter. O'Beary decided to go to Kenya and guarantee that she wouldn't have to deal with the snow and ice. But yes, O'Beary went to the arms there. We actually saw her physically move and try to move by, and Locati shut it down.
Locati has 3 podium finishes in 4 Abbott World Marathon Majors, well on her way to a 4th podium here, but wants the top of the podium here on Patriots Day in Boston. O'Beary really going to the arms, demonstrative, even though that is her classic style, but she is really focused on that and focused on the back of Locati, and Locati looks very comfortable, and maybe just ever so slightly a little bit of separation here, but they're both in tow. Yahuala there in the distance, alone in 3rd.
Locati looks so determined at this point, Paul. We know her as so smiling and friendly, but right now she is so determined to take this race and make it hers. She is creating just a little bit of space right now between herself and O'Beary. It's almost like O'Beary can't believe it, and Locati does look a little bit more relaxed to me at this stage. Remember though, O'Beary has that kick, so nothing is over till it's over between these 2.
Every year this Boston Marathon has a theme. In 2025 it is Meet the Moment, honoring a celebration of resilience, community, and perseverance. And right now Sharon Locati meeting that moment on the race course in the final stages, slowly stretching that lead. And now a good look at it from high above as they will go under Mass Ave, quiets down ever so slightly.
This is where she'll hear her breath. She'll really only hear herself and O'Beary behind her, and of course the motorcycles next to her, and gather herself. This is how you beat Helen O'Beary. You have to push, you have to sacrifice everything and lay it all on the line, a K out.
Very similar kind of moment that Locati experienced back in that win in 2022 in New York City when you come off the bridge onto First Avenue. And the crowd there, but it's a lot more racing to come into Central Park. In this case, there is not more racing to come, as there's just a couple of turns left for Sharon Locati to try to end Helen O'Beary's win streak here in Boston.
Well, Locati surprised herself with that victory in New York, but this victory here, she's able to do this, was very much so planned, Paul. She wanted this so much. She stretched out her long runs this year. She actually hired pacers to help her to run faster in her workouts. And look at the damage she's doing to Helen O'Beary here with just over 600 meters to go.
Yeah, O'Beary herself looked back, maybe now more worried about where Yahuala is in the race for second, cresting this slight hill that doesn't feel slight on Hereford, as she will make the left turn onto Boylston Street.
Listen to those cheers. She takes a look back. She knows she has played her cards perfectly. You have to put Helen away before the straightaway. You have to make her question herself, and that's exactly what she did. When O'Beary tried to make that move with a mile to go, and she shut it down, she sent a signal, and look at her now, Paul. Still looking so relaxed, running so fast towards the finish line.
And her eyes now absolutely on the prize, though she takes another look back on the left shoulder to see where Helen O'Beary is. But Sharon Locati, the 31-year-old Kenyan, with all 3 of our top elite women on Boylston Street. O'Beary, Yahuala back there in 3rd. Locati will be ushered into the finish line chute on the left side of Boylston Street, and is moments away and one more look away from winning a Boston Marathon championship. It had been 26 years since a woman had won 3 in a row, and that streak will will continue as the smile emerges on the face of Sharon Lokedi. She has beaten the two-time defending champion in a spirited run, the fastest run we've ever seen on the streets of Boston by an elite woman in the marathon. Sharon Lokedi meets the moment and is the Boston champion. Champion 2 times, as she will reach the podium finishing in second. She will also be under the previous course record, 2:17:22 for Sharon Lokedi, who came in with a previous personal best 6 minutes slower than what we just witnessed here in Boston. Yahuala will also break the previous course record on a day of stunning speed. The unofficial winning time, 2:17:22 for Sharon Lokedi.